Isaiah 36:11. Assyria's challenge to God. Assyria challenging God. That's not going to turn out very well, is it? Verse 11. Then Eliakim and Shebna and Joah and Rabshakeh speak, I pray thee, unto thy servants in the Syrian language. For we understand it, and speak not to us in the Jews' language, in the ears of the people that are on the wall. That's pretty telling it the way it is, isn't it? Eliakim, Shebna, and Joah represented Hezekiah. They were sent for this special job since they spoke the Syrian language. The language of Syria was Aramaic, which was a common language back then. The Syrian language, the Jews' language, Hezekiah representatives, aware of the alarm created by the suggestion that the Lord was on the Assyrian side, asked Rabshakeh to change from Hebrew or Judean to Aramaic, the language of diplomacy. The reason the three from Hezekiah wanted them to speak Aramaic instead of Hebrew was so the soldiers guarding the wall would be able to understand and become afraid. Isaiah 36:12. But Rabshakeh said, Hath my master sent me to thy master, and to speak these words? Hath he not sent me to the men that sit upon the wall, that they may eat their own dung and drink their own PISS with you? You didn't know the Bible was that plain, did you? You didn't know it. The foreign emissary continued his efforts to damage the city's morale by speaking the horrors of the famine that a long siege would entail. They would have to eat their own waste because they would be so hungry because of the siege. That's a nasty way of saying defeat will be so bad for you guys. You're not going to have any food and water. You won't have any provisions. So he wants these soldiers to hear it and rebel against Hezekiah. So the Assyrians are pretty braggadocious, aren't they? Verse 13, Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in the Jews' language and said, Hear ye the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. The Assyrian was crying aloud so all the people could hear him and turn against Hezekiah. He's hoping all would turn to fear. You know, fear is what we're dealing with today. You speak something long enough and scare people enough, and they will just about do anything, won't they? Peace, when they shall say peace and safety. I keep going back to that because the Bible talks about that. Sudden destruction will come when all people want is their own peace and safety. When they're so afraid. The Bible says men's hearts failing them for fear in the last days. And that's coming to pass. People are dying because of fear and depression, and children are committing suicide. Teenagers are committing suicide. Suicides are at all-time high. And that doesn't bother the powers that be one bit. Keep shutting her down. Wear 2 masks. Wear 27 masks. I mean, well, it's ridiculous. 1 year ago.
Well, they're telling them, truthfully, wearing a mask, a lot of people now, I'll pick up a mask in my car, put it on, I don't know how long that mask is. But you can get infection from it.
Yes. Wearing a mask is like putting a screen door on a submarine.
Yes.
It just isn't going to stop anything. Or like putting up a picket fence to keep out bees. I mean, it's just not going to work. Yet, a year ago, just 1 year ago, Dr. Fauci, or Fraudy, whatever, Dr. Fraud, said that he's not telling people, I'm not telling you got to wear a mask everywhere you go. That doesn't really help. He said that a year ago. Can you believe 1 year later we're wearing masks more than ever, aren't we?
That woman that was helping him with all that, she got out. didn't
Yeah, she got out.
A year ago,
Well, she didn't help matters. Well,
she? She didn't have.
a year ago, this didn't have people convinced. Now everybody's you don't have to tell them. We don't 90% of people.
Well, they're getting used to it. It's going to be like China. You're running around with a mask on your face.
all the time. Never be the same. Like those people are waiting to come back to church when things will be the same. It'll never be the same. I don't think it's ever.
Wasn't there one
one state that tried to make it, you had an evil heart and was in your own home?
Yeah.
Where was it?
I don't know.
Walking on the street with a mask on. And every now and then you'll see somebody driving in a car with a mask on. That is a pure idiot.
Well, now I've done that by mistake.
Oh, yeah.
You come out of Walmart and you forget to pull your, and you're going to say, hope
As
nobody.
soon as I come out of Walmart, that mask is on.
I forgot.
In 1961, when they took prayer out of school, they said, we'll have prayer back in school next year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just like right now, people just go along with it.
They need old Rabashaka here to tell.
Yeah.
They think
Rabashaka.
twice about that word.
Yeah. Verse 14, thus saith the king, let not Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you. The Assyrian was trying to break their confidence in Hezekiah. Verse 15, neither let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, the Lord will surely deliver us. There's Jerry Nadler. He was back there, wasn't he? The Lord will surely deliver us. The city shall not be delivered into the hand of the king of Assyria. That's what he said. Don't let Hezekiah tell you to trust in the Lord. The Lord will surely deliver us. Hezekiah did trust in God. He wanted his people to trust in God also. These things are true. Rabshakeh was telling the truth that Hezekiah was trying to get his people to trust in the Lord. But Rabshakeh was mocking God, just like Jerry Nadler did when he said, God's will is not of any concern to this committee or whatever. Yeah. God's will is of no concern to us. Whoa. Isaiah 36:16, hearken not to Hezekiah, for thus saith the king of Assyria, make an agreement with me by a president, come out to me. Eat ye every one of his vine and every one of his fig tree, and drink ye every one the waters of his own cistern. Make an agreement, literally, make a blessing with me. The official invited the people to make a covenant with Assyria by surrendering. Surrender your will. Surrender for safety and have peace. Were they really going to have peace if they surrendered? You surrender, today. You surrender to the enemy, you've had it. If we surrender to this universal basic income, this constant stimulus that excites everybody, is like they said, now you can pay your house payment. Now you can pay your insurance. 1 month? Does that really help? You're just delaying the inevitable. They want us to get used to it, I'm telling you. There's congressmen that would give everybody $2,000 a month today, every family. And break. No, they will have you then. They'll make you buy at the government store at the government's prices. See, and control you. You'll eat what they want and you'll go to the doctors they want you to go to. And when it'll be just like China. We'll decide if you should go to have your cancer treatment or not.
And you go from a rest home to a rest in peace home.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I believe that.
They don't have, old folks homes in China, do they?
They've got concentration camps. If that's the same thing.
I think a lot of the Japanese and Chinese people take care of their
Home,
own.
they take care of their
I
own.
think, I'm not positive, but
Yeah.
I think they do.
Like it used to be here, now people don't live, now kids scatter out and go to work. Used to be you stay at home, close to home, go to your house, close to your parents. So I think.
But now,
FDR tried to set it up in the 40s. And it's just now, the work he started is just now coming to a head.
I think we live too long. No offense to anybody in here. We can live past the point of where you're really living. They can keep you alive, but they can't give you a life.
What we're reading here in Isaiah is what we're going through today. Right?
Yeah.
We're basically going through the same thing. today.
Trying to get people to be afraid and surrender.
Well, there's, like this says here, we'll feed you, you'll have something to drink, you'll have food to eat.
That's right. Look at verse 17. Until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of corn and wine, and a land of bread and vineyards. After Sennacherib took over, he would move them to Assyria. He would promise them they would be able to live just like they were before. Nothing's going to change. Verse 18, beware, lest Hezekiah persuade you, saying, the Lord will deliver us. Hath any of the gods of the nations delivered his land out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Wow, they're bragging, aren't they? Has anyone defeated our king yet? Well, actually they had. The difference is Hezekiah's God is God. The other gods are not. The success of Sennacherib were well known. He was a very successful, had a very successful kingdom. He thought he would be able to turn these people, though, against God's people. And Hezekiah, by telling them it was useless to fight a winner like Assyria. And they were quite formidable. Rabshakeh did not hide Assyria's well-known practice of deporting and conquered peoples to distant places. He didn't try to hide the fact that they deport you and take you into their land. But he was saying, oh, it'll be great, a land of corn and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. It's going to be great.
Don't tell me that corn wine's gonna be for though, are they?
No.
Yeah, you'll have it, but you're gonna give it to whoever you're working for.
That's right. And it's like that stimulus. Here you go. Come and get it. Making your life so much better, aren't we? Oh. Are they giving Trump any credit for that? Because, it was his idea to give 2,000.
Right.
They gave 600, now they give them 1,400. Have they mentioned even one word about this is the rest of Trump's payment? Anyway, verse...
Like that kind of shit commercial, you gotta get the fishing pole and get you $1.
Oops, almost got it.
People will jump for it.
People will do anything for a little extra free money, won't they?
Did anybody see anything on the internet or anywhere about a woman taking her Bible out in her backyard to burn it? She set it on fire, caught herself on fire, she ran in the house, caught her house on fire, the house burned down, and she survived. My brother said he saw that on the internet, the news out there.
Well, that's what she gets for
That's
trying to.
what I was saying,
Share.
Sharon, that's what she gets for doing it.
Yeah.
I've got a nephew that lives down through there where we live. He's living with this woman that's got a 17-year-old daughter already. He's got a little girl about 8. The 17-year-old told my great niece that God was a fairy tale.
Oh, no.
My sister told me that yesterday. Pearl told me that yesterday. She said, Maggie, I can't believe it. Robbie let her say something like that to Brooklyn. But
They
they
had
told
to hear it
Brooklyn
from somebody.
that she's 17, the girl told Brooklyn that's about 17 or 18. And Brooklyn's 8, and she told Brooklyn that God was a fairy tale. Now,
No.
you know what? I'll help that girl do all that. She may not get that offer again.
She better straighten up. Well, in Venezuela, the cartels raided a place. These Christians had fixed a very successful rehab center for people that were on drugs, Christian center, and the cartel went in and raided it and took the Bibles, tore the pages out, and made them eat it. Made them eat the pages of the Bible, the residents of the rehab center. Wicked. And the preacher, they didn't kill anybody, but the preacher who's in charge of it is very upset and complaining internationally. He wants people to help them. But that's awful. Verse 19, where are the gods of Hamath and Arphad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? They have delivered Samaria out of my hand. Who are they among all the gods of these lands, and that have delivered their land out of my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem out of my hand? Now, this is, if they would look at the battle against Hamath, they would realize the cruelty of the Assyrians. The Assyrians, here's what happened to Hamath. They burned Hamath to death after they captured him. Arphad is mentioned because they sided in with Hamath in the war and came up with the same fate. I say again, their gods were not the real God. If Samaria fell to the Assyrians, what made Hezekiah believe it would not fall too? So they're bragging again, saying, where are the gods of Hamath and Arphad? I guess these were Samaritans. Did they deliver Samaria out of my hand? Verse 21, but they held their peace and answered him not a word, for the king's commandment was saying, answer him not. The king Hezekiah told him not to answer. Do not answer their criticism and their threats. Sometimes it's best just to not say a word, isn't it? Instead of fighting. I know the Meghan Markle and Prince Harry have run into all kinds of trouble. Well, they think they're doing a great thing to betray the royal family. But the royal family has a great, I read a great statement by Queen Elizabeth. I cannot remember that. She's brilliant, 94 years old, and the royal family has a slogan. I can't remember it. But it's like, don't respond to criticism. Don't respond to, it makes you look, it's not becoming. Just be above it. And they never respond. They get criticized a lot. Not a whole lot, but they don't respond to criticism. So all she said about, Meghan Markle is her granddaughter-in-law. And Harry and her have left the royal family, want to live in Los Angeles. She's estranged from her father. She hasn't spoken to her father in 2 years. Her sister hasn't spoken to her in years. And she said the royal family treated her child, Archie, different because they were afraid he was going to be dark. She's supposed to be what? Half black. And
I think Kate's a pretty woman. I think Kate's got class, but I don't think this was done in class. I don't think she's pretty troublemaker.
Is she?
Oh.
definitely a troublemaker.
I don't follow.
They don't.
Well, I hadn't either until I'd seen them in the news, but I didn't pay attention to them. But they don't, she wants Harry out. It's just too constraining to have everything perfect, to live a fairy tale life. She wants more drama, I guess. Some people just love drama. So she goes on.
What did king was if ever one of the other ones got killed. So,
Yeah.
the other family.
Well, they said he could be, he's not going to be in the line to be king, he's in the line to be lord.
He's a duke,
Yeah.
and she's a duchess.
But he can't
Well,
he can be lord.
Used to be, there was rumors going around that Harry wasn't Charles's kid anyway. And he was somebody else's kid.
That could well be.
Yeah.
Because Diana, she wasn't perfect.
Yeah. So, but Charles was fooling around with that woman he's married to now. Coming for what Camilla?
Yeah, they forced him to marry Diana.
Well, I think they should just.
Just like I said, Delilah got old Samson, she's got old Harry.
He says he's okay with it, but I think he's unhappy because he's always been around his family.
Hey,
Well, they're disowning him. Or not disowning him, but they're cutting him off if that's what he wants.
He needs to take that ring out his nose then, that she's pulled.
She just,
Did you see that one guy, Morgan, Carol Morgan or something? He's an announcer. He's been on Fox News before, but he was in England. He's a TV guy, news guy. And this guy was going over. He said, "I know you don't like her, blah blah blah." He got up and walked out, and then he quit.
yeah, Pierce Morgan.
Yeah, that was his name.
Yeah, good for him.
that black guy was really ragging on him when
Yeah. I said, good for him. Yeah, I was like that. Good
Well,
for him.
that Baldwin guy, what's his name? I forget his first name. The actor Baldwin.
he
so-
small.
Out. He ragged on Trump. President Trump, he just talked about him like a dog and everything. Now people are talking about his wife on Twitter, so it showed on something the other day, said he was off of Twitter, said, cause it said something about some woman, she didn't know what, nationality she was, because she kept changing her language, the way she spoke, and people had said something about his wife like that, and he said that about that woman, said, well, she can't tell which one she is, or something like that. And other day he said he's getting off of Twitter, people are getting so thin-skinned.
Yeah,
And
they
he
can't handle
started
it.
all. I
They
mean,
can't handle it.
you know,
Okay,
and the authority out of people.
that's right.
And I mean,
But anyway, answer him not. I think that's very cool. That sometimes it's best to say nothing. They had orders from the leaders not to listen to the ministers Assyria sent. They did not get frightened and followed the Assyrian. They did not even answer him at all. Sometimes it's best just not say anything. People get so out of line and so crazy. It's best just say nothing. Just walk away. I've heard Irvin say that a lot. Just walk away.
But really, if you do, then they're the ones that look so bad.
I've been doing that for the last 50 years.
You just, it doesn't do any good to argue. Today, you're wasting your time to argue with people because there's such a division in the world.
They're trying to get people, it's like we talked about before, the best way to control people is to be scared.
Mhm.
And it is, that's basically what the Democrats done. They said Trump's gonna run the world. Because he said stupid stuff. And, well, I mean, but that's what they're doing there, is they're trying to just make people scared and then you can control them.
Yeah.
And that's what Antichrist is gonna do. So I'm the answer. I can fix this for you. Everybody will fall.
won't he do, make,
If
won't
Trump
he fix
comes back in
things?
2024, it's going to be a shock.
Yeah.
22 is probably a, 22 is probably a shock, but 24 is, it's scary to say what might happen one way or the other, really, because a lot of things can happen between now and then.
But we got HR 1.
Huh?
We got HR 1. There'll never be a fair election. It's impossible.
But the thing about it, two can play that game.
Yes.
Right now, it would take 75% of the people, that'd be Republican to win. Vote Republican.
Two or three more ballots.
25% is correct.
We all should vote early, vote often.
Yeah.
That's their slogan. We need one too. Vote earlier, vote oftener.
They found that one governor, they gave that one governor a hard time because he had something about illegal the way he voted or something. One Republican, they found out something, I finally found one Republican who voted bad, they pointed that out.
But they couldn't find out, what, 75,000?
It was fixed from get-go.
It was just something illegal about the way he done it. He was actually a governor of one state, but he's a resident of the other or something. It was something illegal the way he done it, but he didn't know probably or something. He's actually a resident of the other state. I can't remember what it was. One governor, maybe the senator or something. But his residency was actually in another state or something. A lot of times they are. But, and he voted something about, they said it's illegal the way he did it.
Oh, you can be sure they'll find one Republican voted wrong, but
That's
anyway.
why they started that fight in Washington, because they had to stop the Republicans from investigating the election. Right?
Yeah.
If they investigated that election and blowing up all of those machines down there in Nashville, I mean, the AT&T, and where did a man come up with $1.5 million to buy explosives that go out instead of vertical? They went horizontal.
Yeah,
I mean, nobody
That's
smells,
rare.
he was a patsy.
nobody smells anything wrong with it. I mean, all these believers that walk like a duck and claps like a duck, it's a duck. And that was just covering it. Don't they see? But people's got their eyes closed.
Well, they're always, let's look over here, don't look at this. They're always having another crisis, like the riots. They called that a crisis. Then that gets hot. Then they go back to impeaching Trump again. I mean, there's always something they want you to focus on. Get your mind off that. Now they want us to focus on Harry and Meghan. For goodness sake. 17 million people watch that.
Yeah, everybody, I mean, all of them, when I look at 4 different news stations this morning, and they all touched on it.
Yeah, because that's, now let's talk about this. Let's forget about all these other things going on. That's nothing.
CNN, well, hopefully started it.
Yeah. Verse 22, then came Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, that was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, and the son of Asaph the recorder, and Hezekiah with their clothes rent, and told him the words of Rabshakeh. Okay, Hezekiah's been told now. These three did not want to bring this message to Hezekiah. They rent their clothes because the message was so bad. They reported to him in a state of grief and shock at the blasphemy they thought they had heard. They were mourning for their king, their country, and their inability to change the mind of Rabshakeh. They gave Hezekiah the message with much sorrow in their hearts. You know, are we in a state of grief and shock at the things going on in this world?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying we should. Israel was a religious state. I mean, God appointed the king. Of course, he appoints ours too. But I'm saying they were built on the 10 Commandments and a religion. We are built on the Constitution, which is I think it's a spiritual document. It's not a holy document. The Bible's only document that's holy.
But it's better than any other country's got.
Yeah, it's the best anybody's ever come up with. And maybe we should rent our clothes and grief and shock and over the blasphemous thing that Jerry Nagel said. That's blasphemy.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Lord, take care of you.
Thanks. That would be.
Oh, come on, look what all he done now. His fat's in the fire, ain't he?
Well, they seem to wiggle out of the fire. Okay, that ends chapter 36. How much time we got? Plenty of time. We can do one chapter, I believe. And it came to pass when, verse 37, chapter 37, verse 1. It came to pass when King Hezekiah. Okay, this is chapter 37. God is going to smiteth Assyria. It's pretty bad when God has to smite you. Remember that. Don't be smitten of God. And it came to pass when King Hezekiah heard it, that he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. Rent with sackcloth. A reaction that symbolized Hezekiah's grief, repentance, and contrition. The nation was to repent and the king was to lead the way. Sackcloth must be very, very uncomfortable. It's a symbol of no comfort. You are not going to allow yourself any comfort, but you don't deserve anything but repentance and contrition. God designated the temple as his house of prayer, so it was the proper place to go to confess sins and seek forgiveness, according to Psalm 73 and Isaiah 56. The three messengers, remember, had come back from meeting with the Assyrian with bad news. The Assyrians were threatening to take Judah. When Hezekiah hears this bad news, he immediately goes in the morning. He tears his regular clothes from himself and puts on sackcloth, the garment of mourning. He went to the temple to pray to the Lord.
This book says sackcloth is rough cloth made from hemp or flax, worn as a sign of mourning.
Very uncomfortable.
Like a burlap sack, isn't it? Maybe we should put on some burlap. Pray for our country. Isaiah 37:2, and he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests, and covered with sackcloth, unto Isaiah the prophet of son of Amos. Okay, here comes Isaiah into the scene now. They've gone. They want to go talk to the prophets. These priests were the senior religious leaders in Israel. Hezekiah sends these men to speak to the prophet Isaiah on behalf of Hezekiah. They are all dressed in mourning clothes as well. Hezekiah was a humble man and probably sent them thinking himself unworthy to speak direct to the prophet Isaiah. Hezekiah had great respect for the prophet of God, Isaiah. Isaiah 37:3, and they said unto him, Thus saith Hezekiah, This day is a day of trouble, and of rebuke and of blasphemy. For the children are come to the birth, and there is not strength to bring forth. They've come to the birth, no strength. Hezekiah compared his dilemma with a mother in labor, unable to deliver the child. Jerusalem had to be delivered, but she was helpless to make it happen. The worst mistake Hezekiah had made was putting his faith in Egypt for help. He was truly a servant of God, however. Hezekiah felt in his heart this was a judgment of God against the land of Judah for asking for help. It appears that Hezekiah is saying that the words Rabshakeh had spoken of the Lord were blasphemy. The statements about the birth above is saying that we are in trouble and we need God's help. We cannot get out of it ourselves. We need God's help. If our leaders would come to that point and pray and say we are in trouble, instead of saying God's will is of no concern in this building, he should have said we need God. Because the man was speaking to him told him the truth. That congressman was telling him that we need to repent. We've offended God with this stuff. And he was pleading. And that's the answer that he got.
Nobody wants to hear the truth.
No.
Not like him.
Isaiah 37:4. It may be the Lord thy God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria, his master, has sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore lift up thy prayer for the remnant that is left. Hezekiah received a report of Rabshakeh's belittling the Lord by equating him with other gods, and points out the distinction between God who is living and the gods who are lifeless and helpless. Only Jerusalem remained unconquered. Hezekiah asked Isaiah's prayer for the city. Hezekiah is pleading for Isaiah to pray to God for them. Wherefore lift up thy prayer for the remnant that is left. So he's pleading for Hezekiah. Hezekiah's pleading for Isaiah to pray for the nation. Isaiah 37:5. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah. The men of Hezekiah sent, bring the message to Isaiah as they were commanded. Verse 6. And Isaiah said unto them, Thus shall ye say unto your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words that thou hast heard, wherewith the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Of course, Isaiah speaking for God. Isaiah speaking on behalf of God tells the messengers to tell Hezekiah not to be afraid. God has heard the statements of the Assyrian. God hears everything. He heard what the guy said. Can you imagine? God heard Jerry Nadler. God heard all the other blasphemous things about gender identity and pride parades. God has seen all that. What? Sodomy. God has seen all that and heard it. We don't have to tell him what's going on. Verse 7. What?
And all these little babies.
Abortion. God has heard their cries. We got so many things going on. We always forget to mention abortion. That's the worst crime.
Yes.
We gotta get used to it.
We've gotten used to it.
Everything else, I guess, get a focus on, but that's a part of the worst crime in this country.
God forbid.
In Alabama, I think it is down there, is trying to, that governor signed that law in effect.
That nearly almost, just about outlaws all.
Just about outlawed all abortions.
Really?
Didn't it say as long as there was a heartbeat, they could not be aborted?
Amen.
Isn't there like 11 states or something that's not went to that? There's several states that went to that.
The ones that are getting rid of the masks are trying to save babies too. Isn't that coincidental?
God will bless those states.
Yes.
I mean, you look at Florida, how he's blessed that governor down there.
Yeah.
And if anything, Florida should have been the worst loss because you got a lot of old people down there.
I know.
They should have had the worst loss and everything, but they did good because God always blessed them.
And you know, when they did a poll, he was second behind Trump.
Yeah.
And then that governor from South Dakota, Nona, she was third.
I think Trump should step aside and pull for
Yeah.
the governor DeSantis of Florida and Nome be his running mate.
Right.
Now that would be a dynamic
And
duo.
people for him because that name, if anything, out there, the name Sanders, he's gonna get Mexican. Because that was the biggest transfer of people going to Trump after since the election was Mexicans. By far, they had double digits, I think, percentage.
They don't want the borders open. They had to come in the right way. You can imagine how they're offended that they're letting everybody just pour over the border.
What's down there too,
Yeah.
There's not very much good stuff for us to get. We can transform some people and help them, because we got jobs that people need to do the mediocre, or, the small job, that nobody needs skills. We need a few of those people, not millions of Florida. You gotta monitor it, you gotta come in legally.
Why do you think we got a fence around the Capitol
Right.
building?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just like the soldiers when they went west back in the 1800s.
Yep.
To put the Indians up the man, what they had to do, they had to build them a fort.
Yep.
Keep the Indians from coming in and getting them. And right now, that's what old Nancy Pelosi named afraid of.
Right.
They're afraid of the Indians,
They're gonna come.
Hey,
which is us.
Yes,
They know they're enemy territory.
yes, they do.
well, those two women that, you know, that they arrested that was looking for Nancy Pelosi that day.
I wish they.
And I can still watch.
Oh, if they
I wish it was a
That's
good
big, but I
message and wore her out.
That's what you do. Like my brother said, take her behind the
What
woodshed and
are
give
you
her
stopping
a
at
good
there,
look.
Jack?
Verse
Verse 7.
I'd love to take them.
God's reply to these men, what he's going to do to these men that blasphemed against him. We'll start with verse 7. On, Lord willing, on the 17th of March.
37 at 7 and on the 17th.
Yeah. Got to wear your green. And this will be at 5:30. 5:30 next Wednesday. Going back to regular time. So you have time to cut your grass before you come to church.
I said, we will be
Don't say that. I don't
God
remember
bless.